Hi guys, and welcome back, and today we'll be doing another watch review, and this is a watch I've actually wanted to review for quite some time, and it is the SEIKO Brightz SDGM001. And I had my eyes set on this Seiko for a long time. Eventually picked it up a couple years ago for a little bit higher than the retail price because they discontinued this one. And I really wish they'd still make this one, but Seiko's moved on to newer models, and that's just how it is. But with that said, let's dive right in. Alright, so here is the watch popped off the wrist, and like I said earlier, this is the SEIKO SDGM001. And we're going to do this review just like all the others, so we'll start off with the timekeeping. I've been wearing this watch all day. It's still well within the minute, so really not a lot of complaints there. Now moving on to the movement, it uses a 6R15 movement, so you know it's a pretty good movement from Seiko. I think the tolerance is plus 25 minus 15 if I remember right. So pretty good movement, but you know eventually that'll lead to some variances in the timekeeping. Now the functionality of this watch is a 10 out of 10. I mean, it's a dress watch. It doesn't have any lume. It's, you know, exactly what it's supposed to be. No complaints. All this thing is supposed to do is look nice, look elegant, look sharp, and tell the time. And it does that absolutely perfectly. Now, one of my favorite things about this watch, and I usually don't buy watches for the strap or bracelet that they come on, and I didn't in this case either, but it was definitely a plus, is this bracelet. Yes, you're going to see some scuffs. I do wear it. It has its desk diving marks, but this bracelet is just so well done. It's nice and sturdy. You know, you have the drilled lug holes right there, so it's easy to change the bracelet in and out. I have worn it on a strap before, but I always come back to the bracelet on this. I think I do need to add a half link in there. It is a little tight on me now due to quarantine, but overall still really comfortable. But yeah, this bracelet is, I can't talk highly enough about it. It's a 10 out of 10. I kind of like the chunky look to it, but it's also dressy at the same time. And it's got a nice button release clasp here that is milled. Very nice there. Does not feel cheap at all compared to the Seiko turtle bracelet we reviewed earlier. This is just leagues above that one, and if anyone were to pick up this watch, I highly recommend just keeping it on the bracelet just because of how well done it is. Now moving on to the finishing, as you can see, let me clean it up here a little bit and make it look a little nicer, get some smudges off. You know, you go from the polishing to the brush, back to the polishing, to the brushed on the lugs, and even a high polish on the inner side of the lugs. The bezel is entirely high polished, but they have just done such a good job on the polishing of this watch. Everything from the case to the bracelet to the indices and the hands, it's really done well. Now the only thing I'll gripe about, and I don't think you'll be able to see it on camera, maybe you can, if you look up here towards the counterbalance, it doesn't really have the smoothest edge on that second hand, and I think you can actually see that pretty well in the video, surprisingly. And so that would be the only thing I would take a point off there. It is a blued second hand, so it is painted. It's not done with a heat treatment or any of that. It is painted on there, so that's probably the reasoning on why, you know, maybe something in the drying process of why it's not completely smooth on the edge there. Now the crystal on this gets a 10 out of 10. It's got anti-reflective coating. Obviously it's doing a pretty good job with my, well, besides right there, with the studio lights I have. You know, it's nice and legible. Really like the way it's done. And it's a sapphire crystal. It's not Hardlex. So fully sapphire, so it's going to be resistant to scratches, and I really like the way that it's done. So 10 out of 10 for the crystal with the anti-reflective coating and it being sapphire. Now the case design is what I really love about this watch. And part of it goes with the finishing. I think the finishing adds a huge amount to that. Just with the amount of detail that Seiko has put into this watch. I know it's a dress watch, but I like the drilled lug holes there. I don't think that takes away from it at all. I don't see why dress watches can't have that. It only makes changing the strap easier. And sure, a lot of tool watches have it, but I'm not going to take anything off for that. I like it just the way it is. The lugs are done very well. Just the way this case is sculpted all the way around, it's just perfect. It's perfect, except for one thing, and I know it's technically not the case, but this crown here, it has a black onyx insert there, and I just think it takes away from the overall aesthetic of the watch. Everything else about this watch is done perfectly well, except I don't like the little bulge there on the crown. I would have preferred it maybe be a little less domed, maybe even flat, with a signed S there on the side, like the SARB line does, like a SARB 035. So really that's my only thing I'm going to take off for, is just this crown. But it does have a see-through case back. You can see the movement. It's slightly finished, not too nothing fancy, but overall I think it does add to it and it is a good look. Now the size of this watch is 40.5 millimeters, and showing it on the wrist here, as you'll see, it fits my wrist pretty well, and mine's just under 7-inch wrist, 6 3/4 I think, and it fits fine. But for a dress watch, I think they should be under 40 millimeters, preferably 38, 39, even 36. I think would be the best spot for it. But I'm not going to complain too much. Now if this was 42 millimeters or even 41, I'd take off even more, but I'm only going to take off 1 point on the size for this one, just because the rest of the watch is so good. And at 40.5 millimeters, it'll fit most people's wrists and shouldn't be a big problem. But I would prefer it to be around 38, like the SARB 035 that I used to own, and kind of regret selling now. But I kept this one and sold the SARB, so this one ultimately beat it out. Alright, so moving on to the main event of this watch, and it is that stunning dial. That champagne color really stands out. It looks good, and it has the same pattern as the SARB 065, which is the original cocktail time. And this watch is often referred to as the Grand Cocktail. And because, it's a little bit of a step up in terms of finishing and I think overall quality as far as the case goes. And it just looks very well done. Now there is another dial variant of this, and it's the black dial version, and I think that's the SDGM003, and that watch is quite the stunner as well. And but in certain lights it kind of has a brownish color if you can hit the light just right in the sun, which does look very good. But this dial definitely steals the show with this watch. I can't tell you how much I like it. I just think the indices are done amazingly well as far as the polishing goes. The hands, I do have that little gripe with the second hand, but nothing too big there. I like the different finishings on the date window, which I neglected to mention earlier. So yeah, really well done. Now my only complaints would be the chapter ring. I think it might be a little off center. I know, common Seiko problem, but I do like the look of it overall. It adds another dimension to the dial. And then, now to me, it's not that big of a deal, but to others, I've seen complaints in the community about the font of the automatic there. Now, if you look at the SARB 035, it has a more cursive font to it. And I do agree that does look better, and it would look better on this watch as well. But that is really the only complaints. Very little about the dial of this watch. Just excellently well done. Now, the value of this, I'll give it a 9. So when this watch first came out, I think it was around $400. And you are really getting, for $400, a large amount of watch for the money. This watch now is retailing, well, probably not retail, but on the secondary market because it's been discontinued, around probably $750 to $1,000. I have seen them go as low as $350. So maybe the prices are starting to decline a little bit on this watch. I'm not sure why now that it's discontinued, but you still can find a good bargain out there. And if you can find it for $350, $400, around the price when it was initially, still being made, definitely pick one of these up. But I think I picked this up for around $600 back in 2018. And, I've seen prices range anywhere from $350 to above that $1,000 mark. So really just depends on where the market is at that specific point in time. And it has fluctuated within the past couple of years too. But, I picked it up for $600, which is a little bit on the higher side, but, it's definitely worth it. And in my eyes, this is a $1,000 watch right here, because if you look at the SARK's 055, it's basically the same watch, but just a little bit different of a dial, with that snowflakey sort of appearance. But the indices, hands, case, and bracelet are pretty much all the same. I'm not sure about the crown. I can't remember what kind of crown it has, but it's a very, very similar watch, and it's priced, I think, around $950. So yeah, I think if you pick this up for this watch here for anything less than that price, then it's definitely worth it. Alright, so let's get into our scoring. So for the timekeeping, we'll give that a 9 out of 10. It's kept great time for me throughout the day. The movement, we'll give an 8. Nothing super high-end from Seiko, but it is a good, robust, accurate movement from them, so 8 out of 10. The functionality, 10 out of 10. Looks the part, keeps time well. It is what it's exactly supposed to be. The bracelet, highly recommend keeping it on the bracelet if you do get it. I've taken it off, put it on a leather strap, and it just doesn't have the same feel. Really like the bracelet on this. It's very well made, 10 out of 10. Now the finishing, also very, very well done. That gets a 9. The only gripe I have is, the little imperfection on the second hand, but everything from the bracelet to the case to the indices and the hour and minute hands, very well done, 9 out of 10. Crystal is absolutely perfect, has the anti-reflective coating, is sapphire, nothing more I can ask for. Now the case design gets a 9. I love the different levels of finishing and the different dimensions of the case, done excellently well. Now the size, little bit of a gripe for me. I'm still going to give it a 9 because it fits most wrists at 40.5 millimeters. But for a dress watch, I do wish it was just a tad bit smaller, under that 40 millimeter mark. Now the dial, 9 out of 10. The only thing I'm going to complain about is, the font for the automatic. I do wish it was a little bit more cursive-ish, like other Seiko watches in their dress lines, and the possibly, maybe the little bit off-centerness of the chapter ring there on the dial, but very hard to see, very minuscule. So 9 out of 10 for that dial. And the value overall, also going to give that a 9. I mean, if you were to buy this when, it was still being produced by Seiko and purchase it at $400, that's an absolute bargain, a total steal for this watch. It punches well above that price point. So 9 out of 10 for the value, for a total score of 92 out of 100. So it actually ties the Christopher Ward there, points-wise, and I think value-wise, quality-wise, they're very similar to each other. Two completely different watches, as the Christopher Ward Sapphire is a dive watch, and this is a dress watch. But, yeah, kind of a best of both worlds. Alright guys, so that wraps up the review of the Seiko Brightz SDGM001. I can't recommend this watch enough. It's definitely one of my favorite Seikos that I've ever owned. It's just done very, very well. And if you can pick one up for a decent price, go for it. I'm not a market analyst or anything, but I do think that these watches will probably go up in value as time goes on. I can't guarantee it, but they are discontinued now, and they will become rarer and rarer as time goes on. And I definitely do not regret picking this watch up. It's definitely a keeper in my collection. So with that, please like the video if you liked it. If you didn't like the video, oh well. And comment down below, and hope you subscribe. Thanks guys, and see you next time.